Meet the $500 million toy that is literally rewriting classic maritime history using modern ocean engineering. We're looking at the Koru. It's the world's largest, most talked about luxury sailing superyacht built custom for Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. And guys, this isn't just a boat. It's a massive floating fortress of technology, luxury, and, let's be honest, unimaginable wealth. Today in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how a vessel of this magnitude actually operates, peeling it back layer by layer, right down to the engines. Right off the bat, we've got to talk about the sheer scale of the financial stakes here. The estimated price tag to build Koru, an absolutely absurd $500 million. Just let that sink in for a second. And the spending doesn't stop there either. Just to keep this massive vessel afloat, fully crewed, and maintained, it costs an estimated $20 to $25 million every single year. So right away, we know we're not just looking at a ship, we're looking at the equivalent of a highly advanced floating corporation.
To really wrap our heads around this, we'll follow a quick roadmap. Think of it like looking at an exploded blueprint. First up, a new beginning, Koru. Then, massive dimensions and exterior design, followed by engineering and eco-friendly technologies. After that, we'll check out the luxury living spaces. And finally, the support vessel, Abiona.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, a new beginning, Koru. The origins of this yacht trace back to the renowned Dutch luxury manufacturer Oceanco, who were tasked with building a classic three-masted schooner on a scale no one had ever really attempted before. Now, the name Koru isn't just some random word they pulled out of a hat. It's actually a Maori symbol from the indigenous people of New Zealand. It depicts an unfolding fern frond, representing new beginnings, growth, and peace. It's a really poetic, organic concept, which I find super interesting because it stands in such stark contrast to the thousands of tons of cold, hard steel and elite maritime engineering it took to build the thing. Moving right along to Section 2. Massive dimensions and exterior design, because to say the Koru is large is, well, a massive understatement. At a staggering 125.82 meters in length, that's roughly 413 feet, the Koru is literally longer than an entire American football field. Picture yourself standing on a football field, looking all the way from one end zone to the other. Now realize this single yacht actually extends past both goalposts. That's the kind of footprint we're talking about here as it cuts through the open ocean. But honestly, the length is only half the story. Since Koru is a classic schooner, it relies on massive sails. The three colossal masts towering above the deck reach anywhere from 65 to 85 meters high. To put that into perspective, that's like taking a 20-story skyscraper and just dropping it right onto the deck of a boat. It is an absolute marvel of structural engineering to keep those things stable in high ocean winds. But as you might guess, building a floating skyscraper comes with some pretty unique logistical nightmares. Because those masts were so unfathomably tall, the yacht couldn't actually fit under the historic Koningshaven Bridge, locals call it De Hef, in the Netherlands where it was built. It caused this massive international controversy because a proposal was actually put forward to dismantle a piece of historic Dutch infrastructure just to let a billionaire's yacht out to sea. It perfectly highlights that weird friction between extreme modern builds and historical cities. Visually, the design leans heavily into classic maritime aesthetics. You've got this majestic navy black steel hull topped with a crisp white aluminum superstructure, and every inch of the deck is covered in premium teak wood. But honestly, my absolute favorite little detail is up at the very front. The bowsprit features this custom-built, unobstructed ocean viewing seat. It's literally the ultimate front-row ticket to the open ocean. Okay, let's peel back that navy black hull and get into Section 3, engineering and eco-friendly technologies, because beneath that classic exterior is nearly 3,500 gross tonnage of internal volume packed with some of the most advanced eco-engineering on the water today. A really crucial point here is how this ship actually powers itself. It uses a brilliantly designed kinetic energy recovery system. So, here's how it works. First, the wind pushes the massive sails, moving the enormous weight of the ship forward. Then, as the yacht cuts through the water, that kinetic energy is actively captured. Finally, that energy gets converted directly into electricity to power the ship's internal systems. So it's essentially using the ocean's wind to run its own internal power grid. But, the wind doesn't blow forever. When the sails are packed away, the Koru relies on an absolute powerhouse of a backup plan. It features dual 1468 horsepower MTU diesel engines. And despite its massive size, these engines can push the Koru to a top speed of 17 to 20 knots, with a super comfortable cruising speed of 15 knots. So it can easily traverse the globe, whether the weather decides to cooperate or not. Beyond just the energy recovery, the engineering team packed the Koru with other environmental protections to shrink its massive footprint. We're talking specially designed marine-safe underwater lighting that doesn't mess with local sea life, highly advanced low-emission exhaust systems, and strict pre-release water filtration technology to make sure the water it leaves behind is completely clean. All right, venturing even deeper into our blueprint brings us to Section 4, Luxury Living Spaces. Because right beneath the sails and the ecotech is basically a floating palace designed for absolute comfort. The onboard population dynamic is kind of staggering. The yacht is designed to host a maximum of just 18 lucky guests, but to manage the complex sailing mechanics and deliver that ultra-luxury 5-star service, it requires a crew of up to 40 professionals. Yeah, you heard that right. For every single guest on board, there are more than 2 crew members dedicated purely to running the ship and catering to their needs. And let me tell you, those 18 guests have an unbelievable playground at their disposal. The interior was crafted by the elite design firm McLennan Rick Henry and Zervadaci. The living space is spread across a massive 7-deck layout. It features a full 25-seat cinema room, an expansive swimming pool on the aft deck, and a sprawling luxury beach club. It's basically every conceivable amenity you'd find at a high-end luxury resort, perfectly packed into a functional sailboat. Now, all of this brings us to a really fascinating logistical roadblock. A billionaire superyacht usually implies certain expectations, namely helicopters. So on a ship with a massive pool, a cinema, and 7 decks, we've got to ask, where exactly does Jeff Bezos park his helicopter? Well, the answer lies in something engineers call the wind balance problem. See, Koru is a masterpiece of sailing efficiency, but building a flat, heavy structural helipad on the deck of this specific ship would completely ruin the delicate aerodynamic balance required by those 3 giant sails. You simply can't slap a helipad onto a ship that relies on this level of precise wind dynamics. It was, quite literally, an unsolvable engineering conflict. So, how do you solve an unsolvable engineering problem when money is absolutely no object? You move to Section 5, the support vessel, the secret weapon, a Biona. A Biona isn't just some small dinghy being towed along. It is a 75-meter motor yacht in its own right. Its entire purpose in life is to act as a floating garage. It carries the helicopter, the jet skis, the luxury speedboats, basically all the recreational toys. Its sole mission is to shadow the Koru across the world's oceans, staying close by so the guests have access to all their gear without ever compromising Koru's sails. Honestly, the ultimate irony of this whole setup is this. The Koru achieved such pristine, eco-friendly sailing perfection that, to actually make it functionally useful for a billionaire's lifestyle, Bezos had to buy an entirely separate 75-meter fuel-burning ship just to follow it around. Which leaves us with a really fascinating paradox to think about as we wrap up this explainer. Looking at those brilliant kinetic energy recovery systems right alongside the necessity of a massive shadow vessel. Are megayachts like the Koru a genuine triumph of classic maritime eco-engineering that pushes the boundaries of what's possible? Or are they simply the ultimate unchecked symbol of modern excess? That is something I'll leave for you to decide. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep questioning the mechanics behind our modern world.